Hello everybody, I am back. I made my format changes, I've improved the show, I've recovered from my caffeine withdrawal. Let's get into this. The Unglobalist, Monday, February 11th. And this is the news in 2019. Alright everybody, let's start with United States news. According to a Gallup poll, 5 million migrants are coming to the U.S. in the next 12 months. 42 million migrants are considering when to make their move into open borders. It may just be all they need. And according to Breitbart, the Dems are using their newfound political clout to increase the usability of catch and release loopholes in Trump's current border policy. The Democrats say that DHS does not need more beds for detention facilities. Just attach ankle monitors to them and then watch them. Also, if migrants come with children, just let them go. If they got kids with them, just let them go. It's like they're perfectly innocent, right? However, the DHS spokeswoman, Katie Waldman, rejected the Democrats' proposal, stating without the necessary detention authority and sufficient funding for family beds to enable ICE to detain family units when they are ordered removed, ICE will still only be able to remove a very small percentage of family units, thereby increasing the pull factors and further contributing to the border crisis. For example, last year, only 1% of all removals were on ATD, at a cost of $72,000 per removal. Yeah, you know why this would increase the border crisis? Because that's what they want. The more migrants get over the border, the more of them they can get registered to vote and vote Democrat. And there's been a lot of illegals in certain places, such as Texas and New York, registering to vote. This is how they do it. This is how the Democrats win. At this point, I guarantee you, if there were no illegal migrants here, half the Democrats in the House of Representatives and other places wouldn't be there. That's just my opinion, but I believe in it so strongly that I pretty much make it just about a damn guarantee. That's why they want a weak border, so they can get more people over. And they don't care about human trafficking. Like, they pretend to care until someone flashes the cash or flashes that little voter card. And they're like, oh, never mind. I see nothing wrong here. Typical. Moving on. Pocahontas of the Mohicans, a.k.a. Elizabeth Warren, has begun her presidential bid for 2020. And Warren states that this is the fight for our lives. The fight to build an America where dreams are possible. An America that works for everyone. And that is why I stand here today to declare that I am a candidate for President of the United States of America. Yeah, when she says America works for everyone, she thinks that that pure capitalism is to blame when one family of the same income fails as another, obviously not accounting for that family's bad financial decisions or other situations. In other words, take all responsibility off the person and just put it on the system. Yeah, real intelligent. But during a rally in Lawrence, Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren said that she would not take PAC money and uses the classic class warfare line about financial power brokers. So basically saying, oh, the rich are always picking on the poor working class. I'm the poor working class. I've never been victimized by the rich. Not once. I haven't seen it happen. None of my other working class friends have either. So, that's a sack of shit. At least as far as I can tell. But other Dems vying for the presidential position are also Kamala Harris and Cory Booker. Oh boy. But Elizabeth Warren goes on to say, we need to put power in the back of the hands of workers and take on Wall Street so that the big banks can never again threaten the security of our economy. Good luck. Good luck, Liz Warren. That's going to be one hell of a feat. In fact, at this point, I'd almost say that's probably, not really doable. course, she avoids what I was saying earlier about the rich and saying just put it on Wall Street. Wall Street's the evil victimizer, of course. Well, I agree that the big banks, but Wall Street's just nothing but a house of investors. Right? If anything, they're good for the economy. And frequently people on Wall Street are victims of economic change, so... I mean, you heard about the famous suicides during the Great Depression where they would hop out a window and... or during stock market crashes. It's well known. Bottom line is the only one she's blaming that you can even remotely call guilty are the big banks. And they don't just affect the poor, they affect the rich too. She is not competent as president. According to Willie Brown, Kamala Harris hasn't a snowball's chance in hell of beating Trump. He writes in the Sun, in the San Francisco column, make no mistake, President Trump's State of the Union address was the kickoff for his 2020 re-election campaign. And so far, I've yet to see a Democrat who can beat him. The overnight polling after the speech showed that once again he connected with voters, at least enough voters, to make him a 2020 favorite. You can't say the same for the Democratic contenders. They all have impressive credentials, winning personalities, and positive messages, but none displays the people personality that our media-savvy president has mastered. Let's just hope Democrats can figure out that we need to go beyond the left and motivate voters across the board, just as midterm congressional campaigns did under Nancy Pelosi's leadership. Breitbart reports that Willie did indeed have a sexual relationship with Kamala Harris in return for certain favors, shall we say, and jobs. But he knows her well. He knows her very well. And he is the man to listen to if you want to understand Kamala Harris, because he knew her that well. But he states that Harris is running on a slate of left-wing policies, including Medicare for All and the so-called Green New Deal, which he embraced last week, even though it calls for radical socialist measures such as paying Americans who are unwilling to work. She has also said she would be willing to eliminate private health insurance, a position supported by only 13% of Americans. In short, if you're voting for Kamala Harris, I'm sorry, you're an idiot. If you're voting for Elizabeth Warren, I'm sorry, you're an idiot. If you're voting for Cory Booker, well, you might be slightly less of an idiot, but you're still an idiot. Just vote for Trump, guys. Just do it. Moving on. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has stated that the Green New Deal from her website is fake. But she lied. Of course she did. Tucker Carlson invited Robert Hackett, the advisor to AOC, to discuss her Green New Deal. He said the outtake from her website was doctored. Is he also lying? Let's find out. Throw in a little varg there. Tucker Carlson. Why would we ever pay people who are unwilling to work? Robert Hackett. We never would, right? And AOC has never said anything like that, right? I think you're referring to some document. I think some doctored document someone other than us has been circulating. Tucker Carlson. Oh, I thought that came right from... That was backgrounder from her office, is my understanding. Robert Hackett. No, she's actually tweeted it out to laugh at it. If you look at her latest tweets, it seems that apparently some Republicans put it out there. And AOC did tweet. She tweeted, "Watch what happens when Tucker Carlson steps out of the conservative bubble and brings on an @AOC policy advisor who debunks all the conservative media lies straight to his face. Spoiler, it doesn't go great for Tucker." However, her statement was disproved via website metadata. They found it in the website's metadata, meaning they erased it from the webpage when they knew the position wasn't working for them. When you delete something, it never truly goes away, am I right? Bottom line is, she's a liar, and they found that it was indeed there. She does support the Green New Deal. And then when it was going south for her, She lied to cover her ass. Go figure. Also, it looks like the Dems may be looking to remove AOC's district from their map. After 2020, every state will draw new district lines to better reflect changes in population. The effects of this will hold back her political career. Keep in mind this will be after a census in 2020. In the year 2014, New York State approved a constitutional amendment establishing a nonpartisan redistricting commission, which is set to take over the redistricting process starting in 2020. The 10-member commission, which is independent from the legislature, is made up of individuals selected by leaders from the state, senate, and assembly, and the original 8 original members get to pick 2 additional members. This, it seems, is how the Dems plan to deal with the toxic presence of AOC in the party, simply by cutting her out of the system, because she's becoming a problem. The Hill recently reported that at least one member of Congress has been urging New York party leaders to recruit a Democratic Party challenger to Ocasio-Cortez. However, the news meant her fans would come in droves to provide donations to her campaign. So really, it's just simpler to get rid of her district. Because if her fans are just going to support her, because they're crazy into her, so they're just going to donate a shit ton of money, so the only way to stop that is just to cut her out of the district altogether. She's a toxic presence in the Democratic Party. Hell, she's a toxic presence in Congress and just in politics in general. She's an idiot. And I think even the corrupt warmongers and the social abusers are seeing it too. We can all see that this one, except for her fans, of course, that this woman is a moron. Moving on to the Chinese news. China has been jailing Muslims who refuse to assimilate with the party and Chinese culture. According to local residents in the Xinjiang, that's Xinjiang, Xinjiang province, Muslims are being made to eat pork, drink alcohol, and celebrate the traditional Chinese lunar celebrations in relation to Chinese New Year. This festival is related to the Chinese New Year, as I just said, and is a Han tradition. And the Han is apparently the minority, is the majority culture of China. And therefore the Han tradition takes precedence. And people in Xinjiang province were only recently being required to celebrate, since they are not Han. So apparently the Chinese Communist Party must be predominantly Han in nature. Either that or they're just catering to the majority. Saying, we're all Han now. You know, it's probably what they're doing. But the Kazakh people in Xinjiang have never eaten pork. One unnamed resident told RFA, stating last year, some people have been forced to eat pork so they can celebrate a festival belonging to the Han Chinese. Kazakhs don't celebrate Spring Festival. A Kazakh woman named Kese told RFA, our main festivals are Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. Spring Festival is for Han Chinese and people who believe in Buddhism. Kazakh households in Savan County, people believe in Buddhism. If we won't put up the couplets or hang up lanterns, they say we are two-faced, and they send us to re-education camps. She said, adding that officials had begun delivering pork to around 80% of Kazakh households in Savan County since the end of 2018. Diljat Raksit, spokesman for the Exile World Uyghur Congress, said they have received similar reports. Or is that Uyghur? Is it Uyghur? Uyghur. According to our information, the Chinese government is stepping up its campaign to assimilate Uyghurs into Han Chinese culture. He said they are forcing Uyghurs to celebrate Lunar New Year, to put up decorative couplets. They are also forcing Uyghurs to drink alcohol to show that they don't subscribe to extreme religious beliefs and don't disrespect traditional Chinese culture. 1 million Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities are believed to be held in extra-legal detention. Radical Muslim Uyghurs have killed hundreds in recent years, and China considers the region a threat to peace in a country where the majority is Han Chinese. So your solution to this threat is just to force everyone to be the same with good old communism? To basically regulate not only their lives, but their culture. Everything they do is tightly regulated. How is this any different than when the Soviet Union forced people to celebrate holidays with officers saying, "You will rejoice, you will rejoice, you will rejoice"? It's the same fucking shit, alright? It's the same old shit. Now, mind you, I think it's important that migrants assimilate with their new culture as much as possible. But not by force, by choice. And if they choose not to assimilate, then they need to go back home. But they will not be forced. That is a violation of their rights, and that should not be permitted. But this is, this is communism. This is what they do. I'm honestly shocked that China hasn't been, martyring, seriously, slaughtering and martyring and just going after Muslims like crazy, like they do with the Falun Gong or certain Christians. I am honestly a little surprised. This is new for them. It's an improvement, but it's not enough of an improvement. China's got a long way to go for I to ever consider them civilized. In European news, a British mother was arrested for using the wrong pronouns with some trainee on Twitter. This is over using the wrong pronoun, as I said. In discussion with a trainee on Twitter, and she was arrested in front of her children, 3 children, right in front of them. Imagine how that feels for those kids. All right, it's like, oh, you're so worried about. Oh, I was offended. Your offense can never amount to the amount of emotional and social damage done to 3 kids who just witnessed their mother being violently plucked away by cops. That can't even begin to compare. What the actual fuck? The mother herself has stated, "I was then detained for 7 hours in a cell with no sanitary products, which I said I needed. Before being interviewed, then later released under investigation, I was arrested for harassment and malicious communications because I called someone out and misgendered them on Twitter." On Daily Mail UK, she further states, "I was arrested in my home by 3 officers with my autistic 10-year-old daughter and breastfed 20-month-old son present." What the fuck? How is this okay? How can this even remotely compare to, "Oh, I was offended"? They're suffering far worse than you, lady, man, person. Your offense can't even begin to compare to the trauma brought on by these fucking cops. But this has apparently happened before with UK police. Seems like the UK despotism never ends. Sitcom writer Graham Linehan referred to a detractor by their former name and pronouns. And what followed was that Stephanie Hayden reported him for referring to her by her previous names and pronouns on Twitter, leading to his arrest. High court papers obtained from the Mail on Sunday detail how Mrs. Scottow, that is the person who was arrested, is accused of a campaign of targeted harassment against Miss Hayden, allegedly motivated by her status as a transgender woman. The papers claim that as a toxic debate raged online over plans to allow people to self-ID as another gender, Mrs. Scottow tweeted defamatory messages about Miss Hayden. She also alleged to have used accounts in 2 names to harass, defame, and publish derogatory and defamatory tweets about Miss Hayden, including referring to her as male, stating she was racist, xenophobic, and a crook, and mocking her as a fake lawyer. Mrs. Scottow denied harassing or defaming Miss Hayden, and said she holds a genuine and reasonable belief that a human cannot, practically speaking, change sex. But Deputy Judge Jason Capel, QC, issued an interim injunction that bans her from posting any personal information about Miss Hayden on social media, referencing her as a man or linking her to her former male identity. Yeah. The UK is a despotic, abusing, tyrannical empire that has no respect for its citizens unless those citizens are part of the system. This Miss Hayden is part of the system, more like Mr. Hayden. I reject the idea that you can just transform yourself into a man or into a woman from one to the other. We're not East African frogs, all right? You can't use our DNA to finish the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, all right? We are what we are. We start as what we are. We finish as what we are, and that's that. I'm sorry you don't like that idea. I'm sorry that you don't like who you are and want to reinvent yourself and thought that you could change your gender to accomplish that, but you cannot. UK knife crimes are rising, and the police are told to investigate mean tweets. Well, the knife crime stats are the highest in 70 years. There were 285 killings by a knife or sharp instrument in the 12 months ending March 2018. Office for National Statistics Analysis shows a 74-year-old woman who wrote a blog in which she stated, "Gender is BS, pass it on," received a call from the police. Now, quickly, I want to say that gender is not BS, but there are only two. Gender was originally created to provide more descriptive power than biological sex. Specifically, it was designed to describe the social and psychological tendencies and behaviors of men and women. And then was just later to expanded because, they didn't take individuality into consideration, of course. And instead turned it into, 285 genders, or miracle shining gender, or whatever. Ugh. But the woman has said, the officer said she wanted to talk to me about some of the things I'd written on Twitter and my blog. She said that some of the things that I'd written could have upset or offended transgender people. So could I please stop writing things like that? Perhaps I could remove those posts and tweets. The funny thing is, she wasn't charged with anything illegal, but she was arrested anyway. Policing free speech much? Mind you, Europe has never had much free speech. Ever. In the United Kingdom, so-called hate incidents are recorded as such. If the offended person would perceive themselves to be a victim, a standard which does not require any crime or misdemeanor to have taken place, surprise, surprise, despite the UK being hit by soaring violent crime rates and only 9% of actual crimes ending with suspects being charged, more police resources are being devoted to patrolling online speech rather than actual knife crimes. Yeah, if you're thinking about moving to Britain or paying it a visit, don't. And if you live there, duck and cover. And stay off their radar. And a Tory MP blocks a bill protecting girls from female genital mutilation by verbally objecting to it in Parliament. You can literally say objection in Parliament and a bill doesn't pass. He supported a bill that made upskirting illegal, which I agree that should be, yet he allows FGM. What the fuck? Right? To me, my opinion is I think he seems to be a leftist, a typical leftist who supports Islam. It looks like something they would do, you know? Mind you, I'm not an alt-righter anymore. I'm not jumping back down that rabbit hole. But the left is the left is the left. It's still a problem. I'm not going to be all triggered by it, but I'm still going to say, what the actual fuck, dude? It's like, why can you support one and not the other? One's good for women, to have that passed. The other is also good for women, but you only pick one. And the one you decide not to pick is the greater threat. What in the actual hell? The anti-FGM campaigner Nimco Ali said, Chope, this is the guy Chope, the guy who objected, was an embarrassment to his and humanity. To his, meaning to his family. Chope has obstructed a series of bills in this way, including a bill to allow a women's conference to be held in the Commons. The Christchurch MP argues that even if he backs the intent of such bills, he objects to them because he does not support the procedural principle of legislation being passed without debate at second reading. I don't know about you, but that sounds like something he just kind of threw in there to make himself sound more innocent. Personally, I think he's a piece of shit. Maybe it's also possible that he actually is against women in some way and only pushed that one bill to make it look like he wasn't. I can't imagine why he would act this way or what motivates him to act the way he does. It could be that because he's a typical leftist that supports Islam, so he wants FGM to still be a thing, possibly believing it does no real harm. Or maybe he's just grossly incompetent. Who the hell knows? But nonetheless, you have the facts now. In health and science news, WHO is going to reschedule cannabis for the first time due to obvious health benefits. That's the World Health Organization, by the by. This decision reverses 60 years of regulation. However, internationally it will remain Schedule 4, rather than Schedule 1, so it will still be hard for scientists to research cannabis. Gee, I wonder why. Is that maybe so the government can be the only one to have access to cannabis, so they can patent it and use it in an almost socialist-like fashion? However, the committee also recommended that the THC, the main psychoactive ingredient in cannabis, should be designated as a Schedule 1 drug, to simplify its classification. Currently, THC is classified separately as a Schedule 4 drug under the 1971 Convention on Narcotic Drugs. Okay, so maybe scientists can simply study THC itself. Who's to say the samples won't be somewhat diluted? Still, furthermore, it proposes that products made with a cannabis extract known as cannabidiol, cannabidiol, which contain no more than 0.2% THC, should be removed from all international drug control conventions. They're quoted as saying, the placement of cannabis in the 1961 treaty in the absence of scientific evidence was a terrible injustice. Michael Crowitz, global policy advisor at the non-profit advocacy organization FAAAT, or FAT, that campaigns for the medical use of the drug, told the BMJ, the World Health Organization has gone a long way towards setting the record straight. Hear, hear. About damn time we got that shit reversed. But according to the FAT, the latest news has significant implications for the future role of cannabis in the field of medicine. The very positive outcome clearly acknowledges medical applications of cannabis and cannabinoids, reintegrates them into pharmaceuticals, balances harms, and repeals the WHO position from 1954, according to which there should be efforts toward the abolition of cannabis from all legitimate medical practice, a statement from the organization read. Meanwhile, international drug policy expert Martin Gelsma from the Transnational Institute told this was the first time in history that the WHO had undertaken a proper critical review of cannabis and related substances. Nevertheless, he said the committee's proposal don't go far enough, noting that its rationale for keeping cannabis in Schedule 1 is highly questionable. The problem is that after the resolution of cannabis in 1961, without a proper WHO review, it became itself one of the standards for further scheduling decisions. For Schedule 1, he told Newsweek, the first test the WHO must do in its review process is whether a substance has addiction-producing properties greater than those of codeine and more or less comparable to those of morphine, or has a liability to abuse comparable to that of cannabis, cannabis resin, or cocaine. Those are the basic criteria for scheduling decisions for Schedule 1, he said. Now, one of the standards itself, cannabis, for the review process is being reviewed. That basic test needs to be done, first with regard to similarity with other standards, e.g. morphine or cocaine. The committee fails to do that which makes the recommendation to keep cannabis and resin in Schedule 1 very questionable on procedural grounds. But it needs to be done, because it's not just that. It is a powerful medicine, and it's a natural medicine. But of course, Big Pharma will probably put it in a pill and reduce its effectiveness so they can sell more. I guarantee you that's what they're going to do with it. Still, this is a step in the right direction. Big step. And I'm okay with recreational marijuana. If you want to use it, that's your business. I don't like it, and I don't necessarily like the idea, but it's all you, man. Go for it. Moving on. Monsanto has always been a company guilty of some measure of social abuse. The following are 5 major reasons why this company should be boycotted to all hell. And just completely destroyed. As hard as that may seem, it's got to be done. We've got to put these guys out of business. Reason 1. Monsanto's first product was a toxic chemical sweetener called saccharin. When Monsanto was first created in 1901, its main purpose was to sell a chemical called saccharin to the Coca-Cola Corporation as an artificial sweetener. Having known it to be a dangerous carcinogen, a government body called the Referee Board of Consulting Scientific Experts, created under President Roosevelt in 1910, sued Monsanto to stop the production of the new chemical sweetener. It decided that the levels of saccharin in people were consuming were over the considered safe limit, and in 1912 the use of saccharin was prohibited in processed foods. Monsanto's industry lawyers fought back, and the ban was overturned, making the first of many legal incidents that would pave the way for Monsanto's current multifaceted chemical onslaught on humanity. Reason number 2. Monsanto hid evidence of toxic PCBs. Commonly used in lubricants, hydraulic fluids, and liquid sealants, PCBs have been linked to immune system developmental and reproductive disorders, and are quite potent carcinogens. Although PCBs were banned in 1979, they can still be found in nearly all animal and human blood and tissue samples around the globe. And because they are so persistent in the environment, they are considered to be one of the most gravest chemical threats on the planet. But the company's own documents show that great lengths were undertaken to make sure the public was uninformed about the dangers of PCBs, even going so far as to start urging scientists to change their conclusions to downplay the risks of PCB exposure. Even the Navy in 1956 refused to use one of Monsanto's products that contained PCBs, claiming that it was just too toxic to use in a submarine. Reason number 3. Monsanto helped develop the atomic bomb. In 1943, Monsanto began working on a subsidiary research and development sector of the Manhattan Project in Dayton, Ohio, called the Dayton Project. This project was primarily focused on the purification and production of plutonium, which was used to begin the chain reaction in atomic bombs, ultimately resulting in the widespread radioactive pollution of testing sites and the deaths of an estimated 129,000 people at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Dayton Project ended up costing $3,606,507 US, $44.5 million in today's dollars, and the world is still engaged in a nuclear arms race. 4. Monsanto's Agent Orange is still devastating Vietnam. During the Vietnam War, the United States sprayed 72 million liters of toxic herbicides and defoliants on farmlands and forests, most of which was Monsanto's Agent Orange, with the chemical component dioxin. Over 1 million Vietnamese were exposed to this poison, as were more than 100,000 American and Allied troops. Dr. James Clary, a scientist who worked to design the chemical spray tanks for use in Vietnam, told Senator Tom Daschle in 1988, "When we initiated the herbicide program in the 1960s, we were aware of the potential for damage due to dioxin contamination in the herbicide. However, because the material was to be used on the enemy, none of us were overly concerned. We never considered a scenario in which our own personnel would become contaminated with the herbicide. As a result, children in Vietnam are still being born with life-altering birth defects, devastating the lives of Vietnamese families, and many American veterans have suffered terribly as a result of exposure." Friends of Monsanto faked studies claiming aspartame to be safe. Reason number 5. GD Searly LLC, a partner of Monsanto, produced over 100 fake studies claiming aspartame, a neurotoxic sweetener, is safe for human consumption. Meanwhile, the FDA scientists concluded that aspartame causes tumors and large holes in the brains of rats, before eventually killing them. The FDA responded by holding a grand jury investigation into GD Searly for concealing material facts and making false statements during the investigation. G.D. Surley urged insider Donald Rumsfeld, who had served as the Secretary of Defense under President Gerald Ford, to become CEO. A few months later, the federal prosecutor previously convinced the grand jury to investigate Surley, Samuel Skinner, was given an offer he couldn't refuse, and he went to work for the Surley's law firm. The investigation was subsequently stopped. That's the history of Monsanto. Social, economic, and health abuse. That is all I have to say about that. Good day, folks.